Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reaction to that qualifying session for the Imola Grand Prix this weekend, and what I think was the best qualifying session we've had this year. Not much competition that can come to my head straight away, but that was an incredible qualifying session. We saw 5 different drivers going for pole towards the end. Really, really great stuff. The whole upgrade battle stuff that we spoke about in the preview video yesterday is really coming to fruition in this session, where we're seeing these cars are getting closer and closer and closer, and it's not just a given now. It seems that Max will just go and take it and win. Just thrown my pen away in excitement, despite the fact that he did get pole, spoiler alert. It wasn't a given that he was going to get pole. He really needed to work for it. We'll talk more about that as we get into it. Let's start with Q1. In Q1, we see a few cars go out on the medium tyres for their first time laps. Those are Russell, Leclerc and Sainz. We saw this quite a bit in Miami last time out with the McLaren of Lando Norris. He's trying to save those soft tyres. And it didn't work for them in Miami, but here in Imola, it does work for Leclerc and Sainz. Their fastest times in Q1 were set on the mediums. Russell changed back to the softs towards the end of the session. Albon was looking pretty quick at the start of the session, but goes wide into the final corner and goes into the gravel and aborts that lap time. With 6 minutes to go, the top 7 are separated by 0.192 of a second. And the most shocking thing of all of that was Pierre Gasly in the Alpine at that time was P5. Another shocking thing was Alonso's performance today. He had a big off on his first time lap. Then on his second time lap, he was really struggling and had to back off. I think really he only set one proper time lap, and it still was not good enough. Alonso had a crash in FP3. The Aston team worked really hard to make sure that car was ready to go for qualifying, but when it went out, there was something seriously wrong with that car, and he ended up qualifying. He finished 20th, but then Sargent's lap time got deleted, so he'll be 19th tomorrow. But again, I would not be surprised if we maybe saw him start from the pit lane after some kind of change with the car overnight. Towards the end of the session as well, Nico Hülkenberg goes top. He does get beaten eventually by Max Verstappen, but a fantastic lap from Hülkenberg, who's never driven here before. In all these years of Formula 1, they never came to Imola. Apparently in all his junior career as well, never came to Imola. So his first ever qualifying session at this track, he nearly finished it on top. Fantastic stuff yet again in qualifying from Nico Hülkenberg. And in terms of who went out of that session, it was Logan Sargent in 20th. Initially he was 17th, but his track time got deleted due to track limits. So he went down to 20th, and I don't think he actually set a time. So if you have Logan Sargent in your fantasy team, that's minus 5 points. 19th was Alonso. Really shocking stuff. He didn't seem too disappointed in his interview afterwards, but still very surprising for Alonso to be 19th, especially with Aston bringing these upgrades. 9 upgrades were listed on the Aston on Friday, and we've seen no pace from it at all weekend. I thought maybe they were waiting until qualifying to kind of release that pace, but no, the Aston really, despite these upgrades, is still nowhere. Kevin Magnussen was in 18th place, but he did complain of being blocked by Piastri. We saw the replay. He's going for the first chicane. He was pretty much blocked by Piastri. Wouldn't be surprised if Piastri got a penalty for that one. Zhou 17th and then Bottas in 16th. No surprise there to see the Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber drivers. Going into Q2, and as much as Hülkenberg was the big good surprise in Q1, the big good surprise of Q2 was Yuki Tsunoda, who continues to impress in the racing bill. Although he has had a few off sessions in China and in Miami, totally back on it here for Yuki this weekend in Imola. With 7 minutes to go in the session, he put the car P2, just 0.03 off the back of Leclerc, who was P1 at that time. Going to the end of the session, it was Gasly in 15th, was not able to replicate the success he had in Q1. Albon in P14, Stroll P13. Now, unless I am very much mistaken, this is the 3rd qualifying in a row now, if we include actually, it might be the 4th qualifying in a row. If we include sprint qualifying, that Stroll has beaten Alonso. I know he beat him in both the sprint and the main race in Miami, and I think he beat him in China as well in the second one. I'll have to double check that. But yeah, definitely the two qualifying sessions in Miami, Stroll beat Alonso, and he beats him here again in P13. Ocon was 12th, and the big shock was Sergio Perez at P11 there, and being knocked out in Q2, just 0.015 off the back of Ricciardo, who was P10. So it was a close one for Perez, but yet again, we see this thing with Perez, and we've spoken about it quite a bit before, whereas as soon as it gets that European leg of the season, this midpoint we have in the season, he really seems to struggle. I don't know if it's the tracks or the cars or what's going on, but yeah, Perez always seems to struggle around this time of year, and it's happened again. Hopefully it will not be a prolonged thing for Sergio as it was for him last year, but yeah, not making it through to Q3 here today. Going into Q3 then, this was our top 10 after their first lap times. So it was Ricciardo in 10th, as he only went to set one lap time at the end of the session, so no time for Ricciardo at the start. Hulkenberg was 9th, Hamilton 8th, Yuki 7th, Russell 6th, Sainz in 5th, Piastri 4th, Leclerc 3rd, Norris 2nd, and then Verstappen in P1. Once the session was over, this is our top 10. So Hulkenberg is 10th, Ricciardo is 9th, Hamilton 8th, Yuki in 7th, fantastic result for him, George Russell in 6th. Then into the top 5, and it pretty much was a 5-way battle for pole position. I think the Ferraris weren't as fast as they were expecting in the final session. Don't know really what happened there, but still, very close session nonetheless. Sainz in P5, Leclerc was P4, Norris P3, Piastri P2, Verstappen P1, and it was a fantastic, fantastic lap from Max Verstappen. I think one of his best qualifying laps we've ever seen, and that's his 8th pole position in a row now, equaling the record of Ayrton Senna. Going to break the record now next weekend in Monaco. That'll be a big story going into that one. And you know it's a tough qualifying session because after he got it, over the radio, he actually sounded happy. There's so many times at the minute where it's either a pole or a win. You hear GP go, "There you go, Max, you've done it." And he goes, "Yep, okay, well done, everyone." But no, this time you could hear it in his voice, how tough he'd fought, how hard he'd fought for that, and how tough it had been, and how much it actually meant for him. So a fantastic lap from him. A fantastic lap for Oscar Piastri, just 0.074 off the back of Verstappen, but you have to remember he is under investigation for impeding Magnussen, so he could get a penalty there. Norris was in 3rd, 0.091 off of Verstappen, so a very close top 3. Leclerc a little bit back, but still not too far off, only 2 tenths off of Verstappen, and then Sainz a bit further back, 4 tenths off. But all in all, a really, really good top 5, a really competitive session. These upgrades seem to be working well for McLaren. I think the Ferrari upgrades are working well as well, and I think we might see that more in the race tomorrow. I think they've got good race pace, so that's something to keep an eye on as well. But yeah, fantastic qualifying session here in Imola, and I very much look forward to the race. So let me know what you thought of this session in the comments. We'll be back here tomorrow, not just for F1, but also for F2 and F3. Videos and all of that coming out tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe for that. I will see you then. Until then, though, have a good one. Goodbye.